Hi, I'm Rajiv, and today I'm going to teach you all about stain removal. Before we even begin talking about the technical aspect of removing a stain, I really want to stress how important it is to have the right mental attitude towards stains. If you panic and if you're negative when a stain occurs, it genuinely will be much harder, if not impossible, to remove a stain. And this may sound hippy-dippy, philosophical, whatever, but it isn't. It is the truth. Remain calm and actually tell yourself, I am going to get you out. You don't scare me. It's fine that you spilled all over my beautiful white shirt because you're not staying there. No. That truly is the attitude I have with stains. I don't care what it is, motor oil, bicycle grease from my chain, onto these bright jeans. Once I was painting in acrylic paint with acrylic paint marker, and I had something on that I thought, I'll be very careful, I won't get any paint on it. Sure enough, when I got home, I noticed that there was red acrylic paint on my clothes, dried. How do you get dried acrylic paint out of your clothes? Well, there always is a way. So I'm wearing this immaculate, that's Latin. Macula is spot, and im is the prefix for without. Immaculate, without spot. I'm wearing an immaculate white shirt, and I'm gonna simulate some stuff. One of the things that my closest friends know about me that you might not assume is that I am very, very clumsy. This is a secret that I try to hide, but the people that are close to me, they witness it happen, and they just shake their heads, because they know. They know that I'll go somewhere wearing a white shirt, and they know what will happen, inevitably. We're out to lunch. I decide I want a hot dog. I have the hot dog. We're talking. I'm being very careful, and then Roger. That's what my friend Corinne would say every time this would happen. So, we laugh. Now, this is what you do not do. Don't just grab something and start wiping. Because when you're wiping, you're going to press this into the fibers of the cotton. Okay? So, don't panic. What you do, let's say we're at a restaurant together. I have my paper towel. The first thing I'm going to do is stick paper towel under my shirt so that there's actually something absorbent underneath where the stain has occurred. The second thing I've got to do is take a piece of paper towel in preparation. Now, do not wipe. I see this over and over and over again. Oh no, I got it all over my shirt. Wipe. You're pressing the ketchup into the white shirt. So, on the table, there's a knife, a butter knife. Scrape the excess off confidently, okay? Use the paper towel. Wipe the ketchup on the paper towel. Scrape, and wipe. Don't just keep scraping because then you're gonna be spreading the ketchup around on your shirt, you know what I mean, honey? The longer the ketchup sits on the white shirt, the deeper it's gonna go into the fibers. And if it dries, it's harder to remove it. So right now, at the restaurant table, get some water and wet this, okay? And because I put a little piece of paper towel on my boobie, you can just tamp. Notice I'm not rubbing, okay? Here's a key thing about stain removal. Don't rub at this stage, tamp. So what I actually do is I would make sure that the piece of paper towel underneath is positioned right under where I'm tamping, and I would press. And what I'm trying to do is press the ketchup through the fibers straight down instead of rubbing. And then you'll see if it's a lot of ketchup, it will go right through onto this paper towel. So what you want to do is rotate this paper towel to make sure that once ketchup is absorbed into this, you're moving it so that that absorbed area is not touching the shirt anymore. And you move to a clean part of the paper towel underneath, get more water, tamp, 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 tamp. Every part, and try to look around to see everywhere where there's ketchup because you don't want to miss anything, okay? And if you do it at this stage, and let's say you're out somewhere where there isn't a bathroom nearby that you can run to, then really, if this stays wet, it's better. So if there's the option of taking this off and rolling it up and putting it into a plastic bag and keeping it wet, that is going to help you continue to remove the stain once you go home, which is what I would try to do. Or I would go to the bathroom at this stage and I would continue in the bathroom like in private without the shirt on. I would remove the shirt and do this at the sink in the bathroom. But sometimes that's not possible. So you can just do this at the table and try to just keep this going until as much of the ketchup is tamped into the paper towel below. And once this is soaked, dispose of that and get another piece of paper towel, not the one with the ketchup on it, which is totally something that I would do, and put another piece of paper towel in, a dry piece, and just continue tamping. Now already, this stain is so much better than what it could have been had I just gone and rubbed that 1/8 of an inch of ketchup into my shirt. I would have created a big smear. Now I'm at dinner, okay? We have a plate of olive oil and some bread and talking about how nice Florence is, and all of a sudden I go to put the bread in my mouth and oop! Dropped oil on my white shirt. Don't panic. Try to find actual paper towel like a napkin or serviette, and don't get something that's colored. If it's red, don't use it for this process because the red or the black that has dyed the fibers of the napkin, that could potentially come out into your clothing. So you want, and trust me, I know from experience, you create a worse stain. So you want white paper towel or white napkin. Put the napkin underneath, and like we did before, blot, okay? I am putting so much pressure on that spot, and you can see right here on the napkin, I've already pulled out some of that olive oil. And this olive oil will be pulled out into both napkins, the one underneath and the one over top. So now, again, rotate the napkin to a clean spot, and I'm tamping, pressing really hard between both fingers to absorb. Okay? I have 2 drops on this shirt of olive oil. So I'm going to show you on one what I would do if I was at home. But if I was in a restaurant and I didn't have access to all the things I have in my cupboard at home, this is what I would do. I would run to the bathroom and I would immediately take some soap, like any soap that they have, the hand soap, and I would just put a drop of soap onto the spot with the oil. I would rub that in and I would just leave it like that. And then walk around the Florence with a soap spot on your shirt, you know. Let's say we're having a drink. And this could apply for like coffee even, because I saw this last week at the coffee shop. This girl was wearing a cream colored sweater. She took a sip. And then she started rubbing her cream colored sweater, and I wanted to go over and say, no, don't do that. Don't rub. Okay, so just let's also pretend this was coffee. You lay the paper towel on top and just let it absorb the coffee. It's going to pull the coffee into the paper towel, which is ideal. Okay, so I'm blotting. And the same thing with this, with the ketchup stain. Now I would add some water. And we don't know what's in this cocktail. Like, let's say I thought of what it was on the menu, and I know what's in that drink. There's some orange juice in that drink. There's some honey in that drink. There might be sugar. So all those things are water soluble. So I tamp this, and again press, and then rotate the paper towel underneath to a dry spot, a clean spot, and keep going, okay? And then I would go to the bathroom and continue the process. So now I'm going to take off this shirt and show you how I would proceed once the shirt is taken off, either in the bathroom, at the restaurant, or at home. The way I would continue at home is I would take a towel, like a towel that a nice absorbent towel that I would use for this type of thing. A bath towel is good, or a hand towel, but a nice absorbent cotton towel. And I would place it underneath, and then I would begin the process of soaping this out with a brush and soap. Now, what you have to learn to do is always think about what the stain is made up of and what will actually break it down. So soap is not applicable to all things. And also you have to think about water temperature. So the solvent and the temperature of the water, those are two very important things. For example, if we have a protein stain like blood or egg, or like on bed sheets, you know, like when your grandfather came back from a war, he made a little stain on the bed sheet, had he? So, which I can't say what it is, you know, the children. But that sort of thing on the sheets, you do not wash that blood, egg, the bed sheet stain with hot water, because what that will do is it will fix the protein into the fibers of cloth, and you will not be able to remove them afterwards. The way you remove a protein stain is with cold water and soap and scrubbing. And once the stain is removed, then you wash the thing in hot water, okay? So that's really important. I'm always thinking about what the stain is and what material to use to take out the stain. When I got acrylic paint on my clothing, I discovered that rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, actually would dissolve the acrylic paint, even after it had dried. If I was painting with oil paint, painting, oh no, I got a brush stroke on my clothes, I would stop and I would think, okay, what dissolves oil paint? I would use the solvent that I use for actually painting, paint thinner or mineral spirits, and then I would have to remove that stain with hot water and soap. So I'm not going to go into the specifics of every single substance and what you would use to remove those substances, because you can go online and you can actually find stain removal charts. So look up a stain removal chart, find one that's very thorough, print it out, laminate it, and keep it in your laundry room, or keep it close to where you keep your laundry detergent. That's what I used to do. And then I actually learned, like I kind of memorized what things really work. So for this ketchup stain, I'm actually going to use something that I use on almost every stain. Very good dish soap, like a grease-fighting dish soap. And what I do is I actually use a toothbrush, okay? An old toothbrush. I wet the stain with the brush. And I really wet the stain. Cold water, cool water, not warm water at this stage. And once this stain has been wet with the brush, I actually put dish soap right onto the brush, and I apply soap, again, in a tamping motion. I'm making little strokes, but I'm actually I'm doing this, and I'm gonna simulate it on my finger now so you can really see dramatically what I'm doing. And this sort of banging is gonna hit the stain through the fibers into the absorbent cloth underneath. So I apply the soap, pick up some water, tamp, tamp, tamp with soap. Just watch me do this. It is aggressive, but as I said at the very beginning of this video, this is where that attitude comes in. Ketchup, you thought you were gonna ruin my life, Ketchup. You didn't know who you're dealing with. And already, I can really see that stain is disappearing. I am making sure that I'm covering every little spot of ketchup, because sometimes you miss a little, there's tiny little droplets over here. So just be very thorough, because you don't want to go through this whole process and realize, oh, I missed 2 tiny little spots, and then those red spots don't come out later. Okay, there. This already looks fantastic. What has happened here is I have pushed a lot of that stain through the fibers of the shirt into the towel below. And if I just kept going, some of the stain that's in the towel can potentially lift back up into the shirt. So what you always have to do is rotate, 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 rotate. Take this towel, find a spot that's dry and clean, and put that in the same position, okay? Right under that stain. And we're gonna repeat this process now with a nice, new, dry, clean part of the towel underneath, okay? I'm gonna put on just some plain water, wet everything nicely. I'm gonna get some soap, and I'm going to go over the stained area with the soap and water. Cool water. If you know why, maybe I would jump right over into cold, cold water with you. That stain is gone. It's gone, okay? So if it was still there, I would continue this process. If I still see any color, I would keep going. And sometimes I have sat for an hour doing this. You do want to be conscious of the fiber of the garment. If it's silk, you don't want to do this because you will actually, wetting the silk and putting soap onto it, you will ruin the fabric. So for specific fabrics, there are different techniques, different solvents to use. You can look those up. We aren't all walking around wearing silk shirts all the time, so I wanted to show you on a cotton shirt. This is the sort of thing that's very widely applicable. If the stain persists, do not give up. Keep going. And when you're rubbing, don't vigorously rub like this because you can damage the fibers of the cotton and create abrasion that makes its own mark, its own unsightly mark on the garment. So you want to try to avoid that, and you want to be fairly gentle on the fibers, but this hitting is not pushing around the fibers. So this tamping, although it seems aggressive, with little brushing, that's okay. You can also take the garment and soak the garment in plain water, cool water. Just leave this sitting in there My friend Laura does this all the time with tablecloths, especially when there are wine stains. She just takes the tablecloth off the table, puts it in a basin in the bathtub with cool water, and she'll change the water like twice a day. And it's amazing to see that just by soaking it in cold water, no soap, the stain lightens and lightens and lightens and lightens. So that is another method, but I really like doing this immediately. Let's move on to the oil stain, okay? So down here, I have the oil stain that I put soap on in the restaurant, and I have the oil stain that I didn't put anything on, that I spilled orange juice on top of. Very often with an oil stain, if this happens at home or I'm not too far from home, when I get home, this is what I'll do. I take cornstarch and I put cornstarch just on top of the grease stain. Now cornstarch will absorb the grease and it will pull the grease out of the garment. So this is what I do. I create a kind of dry poultice where I just press cornstarch onto the oil or the grease stain, and I just leave it there for like an hour or two. And over that time period, the cornstarch will pull as much grease as there is excess into this cornstarch, and then you can proceed. Let's pretend that this cornstarch stayed on for a couple hours, which it didn't. The next thing I would do is I would remove the cornstarch with a butter knife or a little kitchen scraper of some sort. And then the way that I would proceed with this spot, olive oil spot that I put soap onto, I would use hot water now. Hot water because it's grease and it's olive oil. It's not colored, so I don't have to worry about setting in a color. Wet the spot with hot water. Add soap. Now, when it's grease, I put soap directly on that grease spot. And then I tamp. Now, I have my orange juice honey cocktail mix also over here. I would approach that stuff the same way at this point. Wet it the way I did the ketchup. And when I say wet it, I mean really wet it, okay, with the brush. Put some soap on, dish soap, and tamp. Now, I am using a white shirt. If your garment is colored, if it's dyed, then you do want to be conscious of using too much soap and scrubbing, because you could potentially fade a spot on the garment by removing dye from the garment. So if it's dyed, be sparing with the soap. And again, if it's dyed, avoid the scrubbing motion and really restrain yourself and try to just tamp. Tamp. Rotate. I don't see any more grease marks. I do see remnants of the orange drink. So at this point, I'm going to keep going. You're flushing out the stain. And think of that term and think of that action. Flush, rotate the cloth. Flush, rotate the cloth. Flush. Okay? Because the truth is, half of this is your attitude. And I'm not waxing poetic about this. It is the truth. I've witnessed it. I've witnessed the people that refuse to be daunted by stains and how efficient they are at removing anything. And I am one of those people. And then I've witnessed the people that panic and succumb to a stain and they give up. And let me tell you this, if you give up and if you say, I guess that's good enough at this stage, and then you throw this in the washer and then the dryer is heat. And what that heat will often do is it'll set the stain. So we have these substances, often like the coloring is coming from natural things. And it makes sense that many things from nature will actually go into a fiber and stay there. And heat is one of the things that will set a natural substance into the fibers of cloth. So you really want to remove the stain completely, as much as you can, before you put it in the washing machine. And sometimes it just takes like elbow grease and time. And that stain is also gone. Bright, 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 clean white shirt, ketchup, olive oil, some mix of orange juice, honey, cayenne pepper, and other things that were in that drink, and all gone completely from this white shirt. Now, I would put this in the wash. And I do use a stain remover. You can go through the laundry detergent aisle at your grocery store or hardware store. You can pick out different stain removers. You can also find laundry soap. This is a bar of very old-fashioned laundry soap. There are a few brands out there. Sometimes I'll just rub some laundry soap over the area that's wet, or I'll use a stain remover like on a brush, and I will throw that into the washing machine. Sometimes the soap or the detergent bar, especially laundry detergents, they will react with the substance that is creating the stain, and you'll see the color change. And this happens especially with turmeric. So because I cook with turmeric a lot, I've found that if I don't remove the turmeric stain and then I put my stain remover on it, it goes from being yellow to purple instantly, because a chemical reaction is taking place. And I just noticed that although this orange stain had disappeared, when I rubbed the laundry soap on it, it reappeared. So a chemical reaction took place. Generally speaking, when I have noticed that the stain disappeared and then I put the detergent on top of it or the laundry soap, it usually comes out in the wash. But be careful. Sometimes it's better to maybe not use a stain remover before throwing it in the wash. Experiment. One last thing I'm going to show you while we're here is I showed you some food things, but what about pens? That also is a problem. So let's say I'm writing and oh, I got a pen mark on my shirt, and oh, I got a marker mark on my shirt. Which happens. This happens a lot to me because I use pens and I use markers. What do we do? What do we do? This is not a food stain. There's no tamping involved here yet. What you do is you need to determine what is going to dissolve the pen or the marker. So half the time it's water-based. And the way you can tell if it's water-based is if you actually just take some water with a Q-tip and you put it on the stain. And if it's moving around, then it's water-based. And this mark is not moving around at all. And it's not coming off on the Q-tip. So if it's not water-based, then usually it's something else, and usually that something else is alcohol. So I have here some isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol from the drugstore, and I take the alcohol and I put it on, and it's bleeding. So that's how you know, okay, this alcohol is going to dissolve that ink. And I put the alcohol over the whole area where there's that, this was ballpoint pen. And now I'm going to tamp with a cloth, but instead of using water, I'm going to use alcohol first, okay? I've done quite a bit of tamping with alcohol and a Q-tip, and I've been rotating my Q-tips out as they absorb some of that pen. But look at this. I lift up the garment, and underneath where the towel is, that pen has come through. So don't just keep going in the same place. Again, rotate, rotate, move the towel to a clean, dry spot, and keep tamping. And there will come a point where when you lift up the shirt and you look at the towel underneath, there won't be any pen stain. And that's an indication that you've really pushed out, you've really flushed out as much pen as possible. But already, just from this simple flushing with the Q-tip, it has lightened so much. It's also changed color. Let's look at the cloth underneath. Oh, still kind of blue. Okay, so rotate this again. At this point, I would use my brush, just get a little more aggressive. Let me close this so I don't spill it again. Nothing's coming through the towel now. So I'm gonna rotate the towel just to be safe. And now I'm going to move to soap and water. Makes me so proud. Like when I see a stain leaving, I just feel so proud that I didn't give up and I just kept going, and now it's gone. This stain is pretty much gone, but I want to show you something because the water portion of this stain removal is starting to bleed into this area. This marker that I put on, the way I would start with this, again, would be by testing. So I would take some water and I would put it over top of this. Water doesn't seem to be doing much. Let me check with the alcohol. And you check. You don't douse this whole thing with alcohol at the beginning. You're just checking. Oh, it is alcohol based because the alcohol has completely removed the tiny marker spot that I have. So both of these, the pen and the marker, were alcohol based. You want to test these areas before you wet them. Like this little marker spot got wet from the water I was using to flush out the end of this stain, and now it's more difficult to remove the marker. Think about this microscopically. This felt tip pen mark would have dissolved with alcohol, but it got wet with water. And because water and the solvent in the felt tip pen are incompatible with each other, the water created a kind of barrier around the felt tip pen mark. And now it's more difficult for the alcohol to dissolve the solvent in the marker. Now I have to put so much alcohol on to kind of move through the water and get back to the felt tip pen. I'm saying this and I'm stressing this because it's very important that when you get a stain, you ascertain what the solvent is before you start to attack the stain. Don't just put water on everything, assuming that water is going to be the thing that solves the problem, especially with something like marker, pen, or paint. Check. I'm going to move this slightly, the cloth underneath. There. And sometimes it's really slow. Like, sometimes it's fading, but it's fading very slowly. That's okay, it's still fading. So keep going. And then I would move on to water and dish soap. Dish soap is great. Dish soap will break down a lot of things after they've been flushed out. Flush it out, scrub it out, get the stain out before you put the sheets in the wash on a hot cycle with laundry soap. Okay? Pen, marker. Not a problem, not a challenge. There you have it. The very basics of stain removal. I wanted to give you broad strokes today. Have the right attitude, do your research, find a stain removal chart, print it out, put it up near your laundry area, and you can do it. Don't be daunted by a stain ever again. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.